we've made a point here. And the point is, number one, and no one can deny this, that the spending is the exclusive constitutional obligation. Spending is the exclusive constitutional obligation and right of the Senate and the House. And killing earmarks doesn't save a dime, but can be the first stop in a real solution. And that gets back to my Senate Bill 3939. I'm very proud of that, and I would like to say that there's a happy ending to this story, mostly because of that Senate bill. Now, I'd like to take credit for that, but I'm not going to do it because I can't. I wasn't that smart. But there are 8 great Americans, and put that chart up, if you would, Luke. The great Americans and conservative groups they represent. Tom Schatz is the president of Citizens Against Government Waste. Melanie Sloan, director of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Steve Ellis, Taxpayers for Common Sense. Craig Holman, Public Citizens. Jim Walsh, Rick Gold, Manny Revelis, and Dan Winhold. And thanks to them, we put the earmark issue, we can put the earmark issue to rest. They authored the 5, yeah, leave that one up there. These are, no, let's put the 5 principles that they offered. They offered the 5 principles of earmark reform, and I will list these. The chart 8 shows what they are. Starting at the top, they said what we need to do is have, and I have to say this, Senate Bill 3939, I got to write this down, will address all of these specifically. And lest you guys, there are a lot of people in Washington that go to a lot of work, making a lot of studies, and they assume we never do read these things or care. Well, if you believe that, you're wrong, because I listened, and this is the result. The 5 principles of earmark reform. What we're saying here is we know, and it doesn't matter what you do in having a ban on earmarks, they're going to be voting and supporting things in their state. Everyone is. And I can assure you that's going to happen. The senator from Oregon, the rest are, this is going to happen. So the first one, to cut the cord between earmarks and campaign contributions, Congress should limit earmarks directed to campaign contributors. Limiting total contributions from the earmark beneficiary and its affiliates to no more than $5,000 would help restore public confidence. Now, this came from those 8 great groups that really evaluated this as to what we can do to clean up this system. Well, Senate Bill 3939 that I just introduced does exactly that. Section 2 says, no earmark beneficiary shall make contributions aggregating more than $5,000 to any requesting candidate with respect to such earmark beneficiary. All right, the second, so it's done. That first is met. The second one, to eliminate any connection between legislation and campaign contributions, legislative staff should be barred from participating in fundraising activities. The attendance of legislative staff at fundraisers suggests a connection between the campaign donations and earmarks. And so we handle that with Senate Bill 3939. It does just that. It limits, under Section 3, limits on staff attendance of a members of fundraiser, except as provided in subsection B, an employee of the personal staff of a member of Congress shall not attend a political fundraiser on behalf of a member of Congress for whom they are employed. Section B, the exception would be a member of Congress may designate one employee who shall not be subject to this restriction. There are a lot of reasons. I think people know that there can be someone who might have to have maybe someone driving them, or someone, there could be threats, and they may need to have some security. I think people understand that. All right, the third thing they came up with, to increase transparency, Congress should create a new database of all congressional earmarks. Now, what they went on to say, the information about lawmakers' earmark requests is scattered across hundreds of websites in a variety of formats with differing levels of details. The funding levels for each earmark award are listed in a chart at the end of each spending bill. And while the data is technically available, it's virtually impossible to collect, understand, and analyze all of the earmark information. Congress should create a unified, searchable, sortable, downloadable database on the public website. Well, My S-3939 I just introduced an hour ago does exactly that. Section 4 reads, the Secretary of the Senate and the Clerk of the House of Representatives shall post on a public website of their respective houses a link to the Earmark database maintained by the Office of Management and Budget. Done. 4. The fourth concern there is to ensure taxpayer money has been spent appropriately. The Government Accountability Office should randomly audit earmarks because oversight is essential to maintain integrity in the earmarking process. The Government Accountability Office should develop and implement a system to audit the reports to Congress regularly on programs and projects. This does this, and I'm going to read our Section 7. This was a more difficult one, but it's airtight. Not later than December 31st of 2011 and each year thereafter, the Comptroller General shall submit a report to Congress that uses the OMB database, 1, to randomly select a percentage of each of the programs and projects funded through earmarks in a preceding fiscal year, 2, to conduct an audit on each selected program or project reporting on the amount, purpose, term, requesting member, and the present state of completion of the program or project, and 3, if the earmark contributes to an already existing program or project, to provide a detailed accounting of how the earmark contributed to each program and project. That was the request. And we came with the section that is, I say, airtight in solving that problem. Now, number 5, to promote congressional responsibility without stifling innovation, members should certify earmark recipients are qualified to handle the project. And the last language that we have on that was that so that Section 6 and a certification that the recipient is qualified to handle the project if applicable. Now, you might say that's great. We've resolved all of the problems that are out there. And this was a combination of the intellects of all the people that I mentioned a while back, so that they looked at all the problems that are there and how can we resolve those problems. But one thing was overlooked, and so we have a second in our Senate Bill 3939. We go one step further. It demands, now listen to this, Mr. President, this demands the same transparency to Obama bureaucratic earmarks as it does to senatorial earmarks. Well, that's kind of neat. So if we do that, and I'll read in Section 5, not later than July 1st of 2011, the head of each department and agency of the federal government shall post on a public website the department of that department, that's each department of government now, or agency, a link to a searchable database that lists each contract, grant, cooperative agreement, and other expenditure made by the department or agency listing with respect to the expenditure, the amount, purpose, term, and office making such an expenditure. Well, now, why is that necessary? I can remember Sean Hannity about 6 months ago came out with a series one night where he talked about the 102 most egregious earmarks that were brought up. Now, here's something that's really interesting about it. I was so excited when I saw these. I read them all, came down, stood right here on the Senate floor, and I went over and read all and described all 102 earmarks. Where's that thing that shows some of them? Yeah, just look at some of the things that we're talking about here. These were, yeah, Sean Hannity's $3.4 million to construct an echo passage for turtles. That's really nice. It's $450,000 to build 22 concrete toilets in a Mark Twain National Forest. $300,000 for helicopter equipment to detect radioactive rabbit droppings. $500,000 for a grant to a researcher named in the ClimateGate scandal. Well, I wish we had another hour. I'd like to talk about that. $325,000 to study the mating decisions of female cactus bugs. Now, I said, after reading all 102, this is just 5 of them, all 102, I said, what do all these have in common? What they have in common is that not one of them was a congressional earmark. They were all earmarks that were put in there by the Obama administration. And so here's the problem you have. If you ban congressional earmarks, you're going to have more of this. Because as you restrict what Congress can do, that same amount of money goes back into the administration, whether it's the Department of Interior, the Corps of Engineers, the EPA or any of the rest of them. And consequently, that doesn't get done. So is there any question why President Obama embraced the ban on the earmarks? You know, because he wants the money to go with him. But S3939 is going to curb that. And I think this actually could have a very happy ending, because the 5 principles of earmark assembled by the 8 individuals that I mentioned, this is an ingenious document. And now those who recognize, and even the Tea Party people recognize that you have an obligation to your states. Let me congratulate Senator-to-be Rand Paul for his statement on Sunday, November 7th, 2010, wherein he stated that he told the people in Kentucky that he will work through the committee process to get things done for Kentucky, but it has to be under a particular overall budget. I agree. I'm with him. I've had the same conversation with Marco Rubio. I'm with them. They recognize that the president does not have the knowledge of each state's needs or others. So with these safeguards and the passage of 3939, it resolves the whole earmark dilemma and puts it to rest. And one good thing about the ban, we got to tackle the deficit. And as long as we continue, as we did in the last 2 years, to stand on the floor of this Senate and go hour after hour after hour talking about the earmark problem, which is 1% of the total discretionary spending, we're not going to be able to address the real problem, and that is the increase of the debt to $13.4 trillion, the largest increase in the history of America, larger than any of the other increases, all the way from George Washington to George W. Bush, and the third in saddling my 20 kids and grandkids with $3 trillion of extra spending. And so that's the problem that we have. And I would have to say that, as I learned in my successful battle against the cap and trade, truth eventually triumphs. Winston Churchill said, "Truth is incontrovertible. Panic may resent it, ignorance may deride it, malice may destroy it, but there it is." And I believe that's what we're getting closer and closer to. The end result will be that Senator will be able to continue to work for the needs of the states, as Senator DeMint is doing, and as I'm doing right now. But first, all of the reforms necessary to clean up the process will occur. And secondly, we can limit President Obama or any future president from claiming taking our constitutional rights by subjecting him to the same transparency. I think this is very significant. And I just believe, after all this talk, all these years, and particularly in the last 2 years, that we can now are at the point where we can go ahead and satisfy everyone. If they want to ban earmarks, fine, ban earmarks. But at the same time, put the clarity in, the transparency in the system that is going to clean it up. And I believe that's what's going to happen. So I guess we can say we can have it both ways. It looks like we're going to be able to do that. With that, I yield the floor.